Super quick question here. How many tabs do you have open right now? If you're like me, it's a lot. And if you're running a business, it's a lot more. And with all those tabs, you're spending more time searching through data and less time, growing your business. But HubSpot's customer platform brings all your tools into a single powerful place that your teams can use together. So close those tabs. It's business growing time. Visit HubSpot.com to get started today. All right, good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, September 4th. I'm John Weigell here with Mark Dent, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Thousands of hotel workers across chains like Hilton, Hyatt, and Marriott went on strike around one of the busiest travel holidays of the year, Labor Day weekend. These strikes are largely in opposition to pandemic cutbacks on staff and services that have continued through to 2024. So why was now the time to strike, and how will the hotel industry be affected going forward? We'll get to that in a second, but before that, let's give you the hits and headlines in business and tech. Starting us off today, Canva is increasing the price of some team subscriptions 300% in the next year, but claims the, quote, expanded product experience, which includes several new AI tools, is totally worth it. Next, Hewlett-Packard won't drop its 13-year, $4 billion claim against Mike Lynch, who died when his super yacht sank last month. The suit alleges Lynch inflated his company's value when Hewlett-Packard acquired it in 2011, so they're keeping that thing going. Over to AI news, Clearview AI was hit with a $33.7 million fine from the Netherlands Data Protection Agency for its illegal database of billions of photos of faces. The DPA also banned the Dutch companies from using Clearview's services. From there, we go to Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster is now in big trouble in the UK, which will investigate its dynamic pricing, we've all heard that term before, in the wake of the Oasis reunion ticket mayhem. For some customers, ticket prices suddenly, out of nowhere, increased about 2.5 times. So, Mark, what do you have to say about this Ticketmaster fiasco?
It's not that surprising, just given how much is always happening about Ticketmaster over the last 2 years, whether it's this dynamic pricing, the long lines, the glitches. I actually got an email from a reader who tried to buy Oasis tickets over the weekend, and she was in line for several hours. And the tickets that were 150 pounds, like at the beginning, by the time she was actually able to order them, had gone up to 350 pounds.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, there were a lot of people who experienced like this extreme type of dynamic pricing hikes. She still ended up buying the tickets, by the way.
Yeah.
And I know that obviously a lot of others did too. And that's the thing with Ticketmaster and with concerts is people just keep buying the tickets. Dynamic pricing is not illegal, in the US or in the UK. It's been happening for the last couple of years. It's just when something like this happens, it brings a lot of scrutiny to it. We'll see if more regulations can be set up around it. More than likely, though, it's just hard because this is also like the primary ticket market.
Yeah.
This isn't the secondary ticket market, which needs more regulations.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully things will get a little less gougy as we move towards the litigations coming up against Ticketmaster, at least here in the States. So now maybe the UK will follow suit. And finally, if you're interested in moving to Colorado, Arizona, or Montana, you might be in some good luck because Mountain Dew is offering to help you move. The PepsiCo brand has claimed the Mountain Time Zone as its unofficial time zone and is offering up to $10,000 in reimbursements for 5 people who make the best TikTok explainer video of why they're moving. So good luck with those videos, everybody. On to the main story today. Over Labor Day weekend, we got word there were some massive hotel strikes across the United States that affected hotel chains like Hilton, Hyatt, and Marriott. And we're going to break down exactly what happened, why it happened, and what you need to know going forward. So first, Mark, can you talk about who actually organized this multi-thousand person strike?
Unite Here was the main organizer of the strike, and that's a union that represents around 10,000 or so hotel workers. And they went on strike in 9 different cities, 25 different hotels. Again, it was about 10,000 total workers who ended up going on strike. And I think I saw another data point to show how big this was. I think it affected something like 25,000 hotel rooms. This is, pretty busy travel time. Labor Day weekend, the staff workers went on strike on Sunday. Some of them got back to work by Tuesday. Some didn't even by Monday, but most have continued to strike through Tuesday afternoon, or at least had plans to do that, and are probably going to be in work by Wednesday morning. But pretty much a 3-day strike during a pretty busy period in huge cities. And we're talking at hotels owned by like Hilton, Hyatt, some of the biggest name hotels in the whole country.
Yeah. And a lot of people actually even went back to work yesterday on Tuesday with 840 people returning to work. And, this happening at one of the biggest travel weekends of the year is a kind of extra icing on the cake for this strike, I feel like, because let's get to why this whole thing is happening. It's a lot of pandemic era cutbacks that have continued all the way to now, weirdly enough.
There were cuts, obviously, during the pandemic at hotels. The business went down quite a bit in March 2020.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, some hotels literally changed their entire models and, more or less became encampments at some point. Obviously, since then, tourism has ticked very, very far back upward, and hotels are seeing good revenue numbers. They're seeing a lot of people staying, but employees say they haven't quite seen a recovery back to staff level. Mm-hmm. So what you have is like the people who are still working at the hotels are having to do the work of what more people used to do. So they're taking on extra tasks, and they say they're not being fairly compensated for it. Although that said, wages at hotels on average have gone up around 20% since 2020, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is about the same as what you find across the economy. So there has been some pay increases, but they say it's not enough, especially with the amount of new work they're doing.
And this all correlates with the hotel industry having a kind of a big comeback in the last few years. Of course, they tried to kind of reap what they lost during the height of the pandemic years, and now they're trying to gain it back. And hotel costs have been going way up in the past few years as well. And as they have moved to get this money back, and as they move to become even more profitable than they once were, it seems like they're not changing back a lot of those COVID policies that made people now work more. For example, when I go to a hotel now, the room service isn't an everyday thing. You can request it to be an everyday thing, but it's not necessarily like that anymore. And that changed in 2020. That, along with a lot of other policies, have kind of stayed the same since 2020.
Right, exactly. And that is one thing that has led to some of these worker disagreements with the hotel management. The hotels, they say that they've been negotiating in good faith for these kind of like wage increases and everything else. And obviously they're disappointed about what's going on. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
But like I said, the salaries have gone up for hotel workers over the last couple of years. I think in some ways it's a microcosm of what we're seeing in the economy at large. Mm-hmm. Real wages have gone up above inflation on average, but it just doesn't feel that way to some workers. And it especially doesn't feel that way if you have someone who is interested in, maybe buying a house, or who wants to rent a bigger place, because rent on average has gone up closer to 30% over the last few years.
Yeah.
And houses more like 40. So right. A 20% raise, while it might help you buy groceries, it can't help you kind of make the next step you want to make.
Yeah, the increase in salary hasn't necessarily been competitive with the inflation and where the economy is going. And we're seeing that, as you said, kind of across all these industries and mediums. I feel like we have a new inflation story every week. But kind of getting to the physical level of all of this past weekend, we also found a couple of articles that were discussing how people were experiencing these strikes at the hotels themselves. Do you have any information on how it actually was in the hotel environment?
Yeah, there was some pretty good on-the-ground reporting by the Washington Post in Boston, which caught some people outside of a Hilton hotel. And it was a mix. Like, people in general who they interviewed were largely supportive of the workers. They said that the workers were outside of the Hilton protesting, but they'd open up and sometimes even like wave them in, almost like they were still sort of working so they could go into the hotel. Wow. However, one tourist who was visiting from Europe at this hotel in Boston said that he got there at 3 p.m. for a check-in. He had to wait almost an hour just to get to the front of the line. Then said had to wait a couple hours once he got to the front of the line for the room to be ready. It wasn't until 10 p.m. that he and his family were able to check in.
My God.
So that's what we're talking about. When these workers are on strike, they're making a huge difference. There's obviously smaller complaints from people. Like, there was someone in Hawaii who was quoted by a local TV station saying something along the lines like, "I get what these workers are doing, but I don't have any towels." So yeah, it was a mix of, I think, reception around the country. However, I do think people really took notice because it legitimately impacted business at a lot of these hotels.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when all of your workers suddenly walk out and are unable to do their jobs, I mean, your entire industry is service. So that really puts a damper on things. But, I'm glad that most people seem to have taken this with a positive spin of, get your rights, get the wages up, get all that done. So I hope as well that after the next few days that they can come to an agreement with these groups and reach a new wage, hopefully.
The last couple of years have had some pretty positive outcomes for unions that have done actions like these and have led to agreements that have led to higher wages, better benefits, etc. So it's entirely possible that's what we'll see here.
Yeah, especially if the hotels are now charging $400 a night.
That's the whole other thing. It's so damn expensive to go to a hotel now in every city.
Way too much. It's awful. All right, and that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a ton more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get yourself signed up at thehustle.co/email and throw us a follow on Instagram. See you tomorrow. Hey, everybody. I've been listening to this awesome podcast lately called Entrepreneurs on Fire. It's hosted by John Lee Dumas, and it's available right now on the HubSpot Podcast Network. Entrepreneurs on Fire stokes inspiration and shares strategies to fire up your entrepreneurial journey and create the life that you've always dreamed of. It offers lots of energy, value, consistency, and it's for anybody who wants to learn more about entrepreneurship. It's super fast-paced and packed with valuable stories about entrepreneurs, their aha moments, their failures, and everything to what's working for them today. Recently, he had on this guest, Ashley Stahl, who talked all about her job at the Pentagon and how she evolved into becoming a top 100 TEDx speaker. She talks about evolving your brand from the ground up, leaning into the skills that you already have to build your brand, and also creating virality. It's a great listen. You should check it out. And you can listen to Entrepreneurs on Fire wherever you get your podcasts.